welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for a bookish update for you guys. So, once again, I I have not participated much in Booktober this year. I fully intended to like last year, and I got sidetracked by getting this, and I didn't download any Victorian novels. Well, but I did via my mom's credit get Turn Up the Screw, so by Henry James. So that's the only Victorian novel I've read so far this year. And I started it before we went to go visit my sister and babysit the kids for the weekend. And I finished it on the way there because it's not a long novel. It's more, I don't know if it will be considered novella, but it's definitely not a long novel. And it kind of has a similar setup to Wuthering Heights, which I've heard that was a common trope at that time, to do stories like that where someone heard from someone else this story and I'm gonna tell it to you. So in that one, it's not as, I actually surprisingly enjoyed it. I thought I wouldn't, but I actually liked it, and I think it helped that I've had a lot of experience with Victorian literature and other classic literature, and it's not as hard as you would think of a read. And plus, on the Kindle, the print is a little bit bigger. But, so this is like a story about a governess who gets a job working for this man, taking care of his niece and nephew. And the nephew is away at school while the little girl, Flora, is still at home, and the housekeeper is kind of watching her. And she's an angel, but she's also very quiet and shy, doesn't talk a lot, and it's taken a while. It takes some time for our main character to really, get to know Flora and win her over. And the housekeeper talks about these kids like they're perfect little, beautiful little angels, and she's very, very taken with them and talks how great they are. And, then she ends up, Miles, the boy, his school sends home a letter saying he's coming home and not allowed to come back to the school ever again. And so he comes home, and, him, and even though our main character was a little suspicious about this and wanted to know why, she was immediately taken with him and agrees with the housekeeper that, oh, how could the school not want him? He's such a perfect little angel, and he's such a beautiful little boy. And but then, and everything goes, everything's going fine, but then she starts seeing these apparitions in the house of these two people. And when she talks to the housekeeper about it, she realizes she starts to suspect they might be the ghost of these two people who were caretakers of the children before that died mysteriously. And it seems like Flora might be able to see them, these apparitions. But she says she doesn't know what the governess is talking about when she refers to them. And she starts to worry that these kids might be in danger after she hears from the housekeeper how these two people, when they were alive, responded to these kids. It's a very atmospheric story, very creepy. You have Bly Manor, and those gothic houses are like, those gothic houses are just, they're full of atmosphere and just perfect setting for a good old creepy story. And of course the kids are just so, like, Flora is very quiet and you don't know what she's thinking, and she just keeps to herself and all. And sometimes, not always, sometimes there are just shy, quiet kids, but in a setting like this, when a kid is like that, I feel like there's a little bit of unnerving quality to that. Like, she doesn't, and it's also, I imagine, also very frustrating in the governess part. She's got to get to know this little girl, and she's not talking. She doesn't talk that much. And then you have Miles, who is very sweet, and he kind of seems to form an attachment to our main character that seems a little weird. And the way he speaks to her, like calling her my dear and stuff. And, and I don't know if Henry James. I mean, my first thought is that he did that on purpose to make this kid seem a little off, a little suspicious. But then maybe that's how he thought this kid would speak. But like I said, I mean, I think it would make more sense that he did this on purpose to make this kid seem a little weird, a little strange. The way he speaks to the governess, and very eerily polite. I like the ghost stuff. It was, it's very subtle. It's a more subtle ghost story. Not a lot of action, and I do think that I probably would be even more scared if I watched an adaptation of it. I don't know if there is one. I mean, I think there might be one, with Finn Wolfhard, but I don't know for sure. I just remember hearing an advertisement for him doing a movie that might have been an adaptation of Turn of the Screw, but maybe, I don't know. I know there is a modern retelling of it that just came out a few years ago. The Turn of the Key, I think it's called. I haven't read it yet. I think it's it might be Ruth Ware who wrote it. So I don't know if I'll read that, because I mean, I did like Turn of the Screw, so I might like a retelling of it. So like I said, I gave it 4 stars because I do like it. It's very atmospheric, creepy, and the kids are creepy and everything. It's a good story, but like with me, I'm very particular about horror, and I think horror, even the ones I absolutely love and give 5 stars to, I would probably love the adaptation more. Unless just a plain bad adaptation, which apparently I don't always know that if something is an adaptation that's bad, because sometimes I think it's a great movie, then find out later, oh, this is a bad adaptation. But, so at least I got one Victorian novel in. But, I mean, like I said, it's okay, I'm a little disappointed that I'm not motivated to get into Victorian literature at the moment. Like, I haven't picked it up yet, but it's, I mean, the whole situation with me getting a Kindle kind of diverted me, and because the first book I downloaded was the Edan trilogy, and that's obviously not Victorian. And that's long. It's a long trilogy. Each book is very long. So it's all good. I mean, I know I don't have to do that readathon. It's just, I liked doing it, but then this always seems to happen where say I'm going to do something, a readathon, and then I get sidetracked. And I am determined to do the nonfiction November. In fact, I even downloaded a nonfiction work via Kindle Unlimited to read, which is The Knights Templar. I think that's what it's called. Let me see what it... Let me see. I need to look it up. Let's see, where's it? The Knights Templar, a captivating guide to the power of Catholic military order and their impact in the Crusades. I've always been interested in the Knights Templar. I've always been curious about them, because I like the idea of secret societies and secret groups. Like, I think that is so cool. Like, I love learning about watching documentaries on not the Knights Templar, the Masons and stuff like that, and like movies, such as National Treasure. That concept is really cool. Like, secret societies is just such a cool concept. So I did download that to get started. And then and I do have 2 books, like one that I was going to read for a trip to London, but like I said, that got canceled. So that gives me more time to read books about London, nonfiction works on London or England in general. And then I also started reading that In Search of Mary Shelley book before we left to go to my sister's. So I'm gonna read that one as well. And but anyway, but that's for in a week from now. Well, actually a little bit more than a week. from now. But anyway, that's for November. Anyway, so I'm also reading. I did bring with me when we went to my sister's. I of course did bring at least one physical book. Well, 3 actually, which I probably should just brought one. I'm continuing to make progress on Anne Rice's The Witching Hour. And where I'm on a chapter where Michael and Rowan have met. They've spent time together. They hooked up and made love. And they just have this really strong connection. They kind of understand each other, which, and just really, they really get each other. They really understand what each other is thinking and feeling, and they don't judge each other. Like Rowan's worried that she has evil inside of her, that she's a monster, because she believes that she's killed people with her hands, or like killed people by wanting them to be dead, wanting them to die. But just as when she saved Michael's life, she wanted him to live, so he lived, he survived, she was able to save him. So I feel like she has that power. She talked about having that power of if she wants something, she can get it. And we just had our first encounter with that man, that shadow devil figure that follows her ancestors around. She's just I think it's our first encounter with him. Where he's just standing there lurking in the shadows, just watching her. And she's like, go away, leave me alone, or like, I'm gonna call the cops, or whatever. But of course, it's like, he's this shadowy figure. He's like a ghost, a spirit, so it's not gonna do any good. And Michael, after this time with Rowan, has gone to New Orleans, has forced himself to get up and go to New Orleans, where he's and he's so excited to be there. He's just talking about the architecture of New Orleans. I mean, I would love to go to New Orleans myself, just to visit there. I think it would be so cool. I think my sister's been there with my I think she's been there with her husband. And we actually, when we lived in Maryland, there was a restaurant that was kind of New Orleans inspired. And I always thought I liked the aesthetic of that restaurant. But it seems like such a beautiful, fun city, so I would definitely like to go there at some point. And I think Anne Rice writes about it a lot, at least in this series. Well, I think in the Vampire Chronicles, Louis is from New Orleans too. I think. So I'm reading that, and then I did bring Babel with me, but I didn't get very far. Like, I read maybe the first chapter, and I started reading chapter 2, but then I, got distracted a little bit. I wasn't going to get a lot of reading done anyway, because, with the kids and everything, you got to watch them 24/7. So, and then I did start reading The Pale Horseman. I got through the first chapter with that one too. Now that one, the chapters are longer, so it feels like I read a lot more than just one chapter, but really I just read one chapter and then read a little bit into the next chapter. But if I, focus on that one and I just keep reading it, it feels like I get through. Like, I got through the first book, The Last Kingdom, really quickly. Quicker than I thought I would. Because it's just action-packed and so many things are going on. Yeah, there are moments where Uhtred is talking with someone or, like, contemplating things and all that. So there are slower chapters, or there's, like, scenes where they're having meals and stuff. But mostly it's a very action-packed story where there's always something going on. And so I feel like I got through that first book quickly. And if I sat down and read The Pale Horseman, I feel like I would get through that quickly. And I'm also reading... So the next book I'm reading on here is not a Kindle Unlimited book. It's one that I actually bought via the credit along with Turn of the Screw. And that is Victor LaValle's The Changeling, which I was expecting to be fantasy, and maybe it would still be considered magical realism, because, you know, our main character Apollo keeps having dreams about his dad. But it's basically, our main character is Apollo, and it's about his life. But we start with his parents, Lily, and who is from Uganda, and then his dad, whose name I don't remember. Oh, Brian's his name. His dad Brian, and he's immediately taken with Lily, and she's like an assistant or something, and they have a kid together, Apollo. But then for some reason the dad ends up abandoning them, and so the mom, Lillian, is raising Apollo on her own. She doesn't make a lot of money, and she starts giving him books and magazines to read because he shows interest in reading. And then when he's done reading all this stuff and he's really enjoying it, he discovers that there are people that are interested in some of, at least, especially some of the magazines that his mom brings home. So he starts selling them to his neighbors. And Lily finds out and at first thinks, oh, so I waste all this time bringing these for you and you don't even read them, you just sell them. But he does explain to her, I do read them, I'm just thinking when I'm done with them, why don't I sell them? And so she agrees that he can have his own little business. And he is still doing it well into adulthood to the point where he's looking for rare books. And so then we meet the woman who becomes his wife, Emma, who's a librarian. And she's very much a free spirit and just does what she wants. In fact, when she meets him, she tells him, you know, I don't want to get serious with you because I'm going to Brazil and you're not going to stop me. And she ends up going to Brazil, and he tries to date other people, but he can't stop thinking about her. And he and when she's ready to come home, he's there to pick her up. And they start dating, and then they get married and have their own little child, which he names after their own son, who he names after his own father, who he still thinks about, and was hoping that one day his father will come home. And in fact, he's dreaming about him a lot. But the problem is Kim is Emma's sister. She starts, I'm assuming it's supposed to be postpartum depression. I don't know a lot about it. Postpartum depression, but I'm assuming that's what this is meant to be, because she starts thinking, this is not my kid. Something's wrong, and she starts like freaking out, and she ends up receiving these pictures where Apollo is doing things with the kid that she doesn't exactly approve of, like putting him places, like leaving him on the someone's driveway, even though he's right there, still leaving the baby on the ground, or like leaving him and not looking. She gets all these weird pictures, but they keep disappearing. And of course, convenient, and Brian's he's very confused about that, and or Apollo is, he doesn't understand that, and he starts to think that something is not right with her. And it gets kind of violent. So it's a very sad book. Like I said, I thought I was gonna have a little more magic, a little more like a fantasy element, like maybe with fairies and stuff, especially going by the cover. You guys have seen the cover. It feels, or at least the US cover. I don't know what the UK cover looks like, but the US cover has a very like fantasticalness to it. So, but maybe the author's just using that as kind of metaphor, or like showing that Emma might not be mentally stable. She might be going through depression or postpartum depression. So it's a very tragic book, and I would not recommend this to people that are parents. Like, I'm not a parent, I'm an aunt, I'm just an aunt, so I'm like, okay, and I don't always cry in books, like I said, I've only cried once, and even in, I don't even always cry in a movie, but sometimes if I'm paying most of my attention to the movie, then I might cry, more prone to cry. But if I'm multitasking, like having a movie on while I'm on YouTube or whatever, then yeah, I might not cry, because I'm not completely paying attention. But anyway, I would not recommend this to parents, because it's very tragic, and bad things happen to baby Brian is all I'm gonna say. Something bad happens to baby Brian. So don't I would not, it's well written, it's a good story, it's an intriguing story, but like I said, I would not recommend it to parents. It might be a little too much. But it's really, I definitely want to know what's going to happen with Apollo right now. I definitely feel bad for him. It's one of those situations where it's like, you understand why their friends are a little like, stay away, don't be near my children. They're afraid, and they, just assume the worst, especially about Apollo. But then on the other hand, because I know what happened, and yeah, how he handled it was not great, but, we can't really blame him either. So I'm like, I have the knowledge of what happened. And this, I feel like you see this all the time where people we don't know the details about really happened. We just assume the worst. And we just don't know. And maybe we're wrong and not being fair to the other people. But because we don't know the situation, we don't know the details of their circumstance or anything like that. But then but at the same time, can you really risk that possibility of being like, well, maybe it's different than what, because especially if you're a parent and you're trying to protect your child, sometimes you feel like you can't waste time being like, oh, maybe I should consider this first, and be like, oh, well, I might be wrong, because what if you aren't wrong in your interpretation of what happens? Can you risk that? I think that's probably the question a lot of parents ask themselves when they see certain situations where bad stuff can potentially happen to them, and you don't know if you can trust this particular person. And that's kind of the situation that's going on right now. They don't know if they can trust Apollo. But so far it's really good. I'm definitely interested. And I don't know, I wonder if anyone else who has a Kindle, do they feel like they read a lot faster via the Kindle? I mean, I feel like I did when I got the ebook. I read the ebook of Cinderella is Dead via Libby, and I feel like I did go through it a little bit faster than I would if I was reading the physical book. But that's weird. I mean, it is a little weird that I feel like I will read ebooks a lot faster than physical books. I mean, I understand with audio, because you can adjust the speed of an audiobook. Wow, with an ebook, unless I'm not gonna get through a book within a week, of course, unless it's a really short book. I'm still not gonna get through in a week, but I still feel like I go through ebooks a little bit faster. Like, I feel like I went through the Edan trilogy a little bit faster. They were still long books, like 500 plus pages each book, but I still feel like I got through them a lot quicker. And maybe because even though I like seeing my progress, with this one, you're not seeing like the physical, you're not seeing the actual pages, you're just seeing a chunk of it. But you're not seeing the page, the parchment paper. You're not seeing the paper. So, like, you can't see how much. So maybe it has something to do with that, where I'm just seeing the screen of the particular section I'm reading, but I can't see the rest of it. So maybe that's it. So, I mean, it's not the first time I've converted. That's for sure. I mean, I was dead set against, but like I said, at the time I did understand the appeal of these things. But I was like, oh no, I'm a book purist. I need a physical book. But certain situations where you're traveling, like, it's one thing if you're going to a family member's house to stay, then yeah, you feel it. Hopefully you can trust that you can leave your things at that person's house safely, and you don't have to worry. But if you're going somewhere where you're staying, like at a hotel or something, or like, going to a completely different country, then yeah, it's kind of better to bring something that you can easily travel with without having to, that's a little bit lighter. Because even though, yeah, paperbacks, I personally think are not that heavy. If you have more than one paperback, then yeah, that's going to be a little bit of weight. But yes, I'm gonna read a little bit more of this. I might bring it because we're gonna go. I gotta get my flu shot. So I'll probably bring this with me because that's when we run errands. Most of the time I bring this, not always. But I feel bad though because I'm not reading any of my physical books. But I think once I cancel the Kindle Unlimited, because I'm pretty sure that's when I'm going to cancel the Kindle Unlimited. Because my mom did, remind me that I still like buying physical copies of books. So Kindle Unlimited is just unnecessary. So once I'm done with, once I cancel that, I think I'll be able to, I don't have to have the books I buy, like, I don't have to get them read as soon as possible. I mean, not that with Kindle Unlimited, I'm well aware that with Kindle Unlimited, if I kept it, I could check out 20 books and then return. But then I would still probably prioritize those books. And I have so many physical books that I gotta read that I haven't read yet. So yeah, I'm gonna cancel. I'm gonna cancel it within the, by December. But anyway, so another book that I did attempt to read before I started reading The Changeling was The Dollhouse, which I think is just a Kindle book. And I started it, and then I realized rather quickly that this is not for me. It's a little too realistic. It was basically this guy, his wife, I think she died or left him. It's him, he's raised his daughter on his own. And then the book starts with him taking her to her college where she's going to college. And they're like, and with his brother. And then you find out that day when she got to the campus and she was on her own, she got kidnapped. And the reason why they call the titles The Dollhouse is because the place where the kidnappers keep people like her, and I'm guessing other girls, it's their room the room where she is all pink. There's no sharp corners. It's all round, so it's like a doll house. Like a literal dollhouse. And I'm guessing they keep other young women in there and probably treat them like they're little dolls that they can play with. And I was just like, okay, I'm not comfortable. I don't want to read this. I'm not comfortable with it. So I was like, I'm done with it. I'm not gonna read it. And it's a Kindle Unlimited, so I didn't spend any money on it, which I would read it if I did spend money. But even those other books I did buy, I actually used my mom's Amazon credit. My mom let me use her credit, so I didn't spend too much money. Most of them were very cheap. So when I cancel the Kindle Unlimited, it will be on. It will go. So it's all good. So I just remembered, I meant to grab them, but I totally forgot. So I have my thrift bookstore to show you guys. Okay, sorry, I forgot. Alright, sorry about that. Okay, so right before we left, I got my thrift books order. First we have Taltos. This is the final book in the Mayfair Witches trilogy. So, and I already got the second book via Thrift Books. I got, all the books in the series I got from Thrift Books, basically. The books in the trilogy. So, this is the last one. But you may as well get it. And probably both, the biggest one was The Witching Hour. That is the longest book in the trilogy. This one and then last year do not seem that long. which it doesn't even have a review or. Okay. So there is. So I got that, and then the other Anne Rice book I got was this, The Mummy, the Ramesses the Damned. Which my first thought is that this might be like kind of like Imhotep's story. I mean, it's not. It's Ramesses' story, but it makes me think of Imhotep and like the tragedy of his story. If you think of Imhotep, beyond just he's the antagonist and he kills people and drains them of their life force, you know, he's cursed. You think about, like, push aside the scary aspect of him, and he's really a very tragic figure. Like, he fell in love with the mistress of the pharaoh, but he was not allowed to touch her, and she was the pharaoh's mistress. So it's like they got in trouble. He got punished for that, and she killed herself, and then like he goes through all this trouble. He gets cursed for it, but he still loves her. He doesn't blame her, and he goes through all this trouble to make sure that he gets her back. He tries to bring her back right before he gets killed, right before they condemn him to life as a mummy being eaten alive by beetles, and having his tongue cut out. He tries to bring her back, and then all that stuff happens to him, and then he comes back, and all he wants is to get his girlfriend back because he loves her, and he's just willing to sacrifice anyone he can, anyone who brings him back. And then in the second movie, he tries again, and he thinks he's got her back because, of course, her reincarnation shows up and offers her body as a vessel and for a Noxuna moon, and then she comes back and turns out she does not love him as much as he thought she did. And it's kind of, his story is tragic if you think about it, past the whole evil, all the bad stuff he does to these people that we're fortunate enough to bring him back from the dead so he could bring his girlfriend back. You know, I mean, he even says, that's very all, in the first movie, she's like, that's all romantic and all, but what does that got to do with me? That's her line. So even she acknowledges that, well, it's romantic and everything, but he's trying to kill me. But yeah, that's when I looked, this is what I was thinking it was about. I mean, or that's what I'm guessing. Or at least not that, but like, yeah, this is considerably, shorter than, although the Vampire Chronicle books are not that long either. Yeah, this is only in the 400s, and the print is good size, but so it's not as long, so that's kind of nice. But I have a bad habit of starting a book, and then all of a sudden I get, like, another one, and also I want to read the most recent book I purchased. And I'm like, I have so many books I haven't finished, I need to finish those first. So, most of those books are the longer ones. So the other one, because we did go into Barnes & Noble, because we were actually, when we were babysitting, and while the kids were at school, we went to run errands, my mom and I, and the shopping center we went to was the one with the Barnes & Noble. And so my mom was like, what, do you want to go? And she's, of course I wanted to go. So she's like, okay, I'll drop you off, and then I'll go do this other thing. So she was, I was like, and I was trying to restrain myself and only get one book. Because, unfortunately, I'm not a member of Barnes & Noble, because there's no Barnes & Noble close to me where I go there regularly. And so I was like, just get one book. And it was very hard to decide, but I decided to settle with this one. Gods of the Werewood by R.J. Barker, and I've read R.J. Barker before, and I did like it, it was good. I haven't finished, because it is a trilogy, it is the first book. Oh, actually I think there's 4 books in it. And I did opt to, donate the book because I did like it, but it's nothing to do with how the author wrote it. It's more that I just was like, the story, I liked the story, but it wasn't like an all-time favorite. And it's too late because, I already donated it, so I mean, I guess I could always re-buy it. But I know that Alan from the Library of Alexandria talks about this author and says how great he is and he's a favorite of his. So I'm just gonna read the back. Okay, the tagline is, "Our lands are wild with gods. Our woods are wild monsters." Kahan is known as the Forester, a man capable of navigating dangerous forests of Karoo like no one else. But once he was more. Once he was a warrior. Udini serves the goddess of the lost, a keeper of the small and helpless. When Udini needs to venture into the weirwood to find a missing child, she asks Kahan to be her guide. But in a world where land is won and lost for uncaring gods, where the forest is full of monsters, Callahan will need to choose between his past life and the one he leads now, and his choice will have consequences for the entire world. So that's on. It was either that or there was another. There were 2 other books. And it is a trilogy, of course. So hopefully it won't happen like where I'll enjoy the first book, but then like, oh well, I don't know if I want to continue. I mean, if the book is at Barnes at Books A Million, then I can get it. It would be easy for me to get it. But if it's a book I have to buy online, then I might forget it. What I might do is read this in the next few months and just put the book 2 on my Amazon wishlist so I can make sure I get it. But anyway, so that is how things are going with my reading right now. I just kind of wanted to give you guys an update. I don't know if I'm going to do an update before the end of the month. I'm still kind of thinking about what I want to do for November because I'm not someone who can only read nonfiction. I haven't got that into nonfiction. I mean, there are, like I said, London Labours and London Port. London Labours, London Port. I'm gonna read that. I have at least 3 nonfictions I'm gonna check out, and 2 of them are not super long. I don't know how long the Knights Templar one though is because, it's on Kindle, so I can't look at how many pages. I mean, there's a number. So, but I have to wait until I open it, to look at it. Well, I guess I can look at it right now, see how many pages. Let me see. Well, it says 2 hours and 36 minutes, so it's actually not that long. And oh, really? It's only 130 pages, so I could get through this quickly. Yeah. Wow. So it's not that long, so I could get through it quickly. Okay. Yeah. Which is good. Shorter nonfiction, the better. Because I mean, I want to still read the longer stuff, like the biographies I have, all those biographies that I have, but because it will take me a long time to read those, and even then, I will attempt to read. Although you know what, because we're going to Florida to make up for our London trip soon, and I really should maybe I should bring the Walt Disney, but I don't want to bring that big boy with me to a trip to Florida. So, I mean, it would make a lot of sense to have it with me and read it while I'm there, but I don't, unless I could get it, via Kindle Unlimited or something, or if it's not that expensive, then I could download it here and just have multiple copies. But like I said, that other book is not, the Knights Templar book is not that long, so that's good. it's probably good, because even if I get the Walt Disney biography by Neil Gailer and I got it on Kindle as well as having a physical copy, it's still a long book. It's still a thick boy. So, and I probably don't need to get any more Kindle Unlimited, because since I'm gonna cancel it, I need enough that I can actually get through it, because I don't want to have a book that I start reading and then would have to return it and not finish it. I mean, I could buy, like, there's one book in particular, I'm assuming it's gonna be a long one, and that's I don't know if it's Fire and Blood or Blood and Fire. It's not the George R. R. Martin, book on the Targaryen family, but it's the Ryan Cahill book, and I know that's probably gonna be a long book. So I might end up having to buy it anyway, because I don't think I can read it within a month, and maybe even less than that, because I'm gonna probably read the Knights Templar book first. Anyway, so I guess that's it. That's what's going on. My reading, like I said, I don't know if I'll make another video before the end of the month. Maybe I will. I'm gonna have one more day off before the month is over, so I might film. Like I said, I prefer to film on my days off, because that way I have plenty of time to film, and I can just talk and ramble like I am right now. So, anyway, I'd love to know how your reading is going. Are you participating in Nonfiction November? What are you reading for Nonfiction November? Have you been participating in Victober? What are you reading for Victober? And if not, I would just love to know what you're reading, and if you are enjoying it, and if you celebrate Halloween, happy Halloween. Although it's not it's coming up. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't. Click the bell notification below if you want to be notified about my latest videos. And I will talk to y'all later. Alright, bye!